She sat quietly in seat 9A, loose black hair, wrinkled hoodie, clutching a faded fabric bag. To anyone passing, she looked like just another tired traveler. Nothing special. But when the plane jolted hard, rattling trays and spilling drinks, Rachel leaned forward slightly. Her voice calm, steady. "Is the pressure dropping?" she asked the flight attendant. The attendant forced a thin smile. "Ma'am, please just stay seated. Let the crew handle it." A scoff came from the next row. "She probably thinks she's some kind of secret pilot," a man muttered, loud enough for others to hear. Laughter followed. A few passengers smirked, shaking their heads. Then, through the crackling speakers, the captain's voice cut in, strained but clear. "Night Viper 9, if you can still hear us. The cockpit is waiting." The cabin went dead silent. The engines groaned. The whole fuselage shivered like a giant beast about to break apart. Gasps filled the air. Someone whispered a prayer. Rachel didn't flinch. Her glasses caught the dim light, her grip steady on that old bag. The young man beside her in a shiny tracksuit leaned close, smirking. "Yo, lady, you think you know what's happening? Sit down. This ain't a movie." His friend across the aisle, gold chain flashing under the overhead lights, barked a laugh. "Yeah, what's she gonna do? Fly us herself? Please." A woman in a sharp business suit, her nails painted the color of fresh blood, turned in her seat. Her voice sliced the air. "Excuse me, miss. This isn't your moment. Some of us paid for comfort and security. Not for theatrics from row 9. Her words stung more than the turbulence. A few nodded in agreement, their faces tight, suspicious. Rachel adjusted her glasses, slow, deliberate. No reply, not a single glance. Just silence, the kind that carried weight. The flight attendant rushed by again. Cindy, her name tag read. Her cheerful mask was gone now, replaced by a pinched look of real worry. She stopped at Rachel's row, whispering sharply, "Ma'am, you need to calm down. You're making people nervous." Rachel looked up, blank face, steady eyes. "I'm not the one shaking the plane." Cindy blinked, thrown off, before retreating with a mutter about backseat pilots. Across the aisle, a woman in a pink cardigan leaned forward, her smile fake sweet. "Honey, just let the professionals do their job, okay? Nobody needs a wannabe hero in row 9. Her husband chimed in, face red, scalp shining under the fluorescent lights. "Yeah, no offense, but you don't exactly look like you belong anywhere near the cockpit." Whispers spread. Some passengers laughed openly now, others stared with open irritation. Rachel said nothing. She simply folded her hands over her bag and breathed slow and steady. The aircraft gave another violent lurch. This time a child cried out, terrified. The overhead lights flickered. The sound of fear spread like static through the cabin. A man in a polo shirt suddenly stood, pointing a finger straight at her. "Hey, you. Stop acting like you know something. You're scaring my kid." His wife tugged his sleeve, but he shook her off, his voice rising above the chaos. "I'm not sitting here while some random in a hoodie plays pilot." Rachel's hands tightened on her bag just for a heartbeat, then released. She turned her head, meeting his eyes, calm and unshaken. Then she looked back out the window, where storm clouds rolled like black oceans. The tracksuit kid snorted. "What's next, hoodie girl? You gonna control the weather?" His buddy cackled. "Bet she's one of those nutcases. Probably thinks the plane's cursed." Sharp laughter followed, cruel and nervous. Rachel reached into her bag, not rushing, just deliberate. She pulled out a battered little notebook, its corners dog-eared, the pages worn. She didn't even read it. Her fingertips just rested on the paper like it grounded her. The woman in the cardigan sneered. "Oh, great. She's journaling now. Maybe she's writing her farewell speech." Mockery rippled through the row, and then the plane shuddered harder than before. Overhead bins rattled violently, and with a hiss the oxygen masks dropped down at the back of the cabin. Screams erupted. Passengers clawed for masks, fumbling, crying. Panic boiled over. A businessman in a loosened tie jumped up, his voice booming above the chaos. "This is insane. Why is she just sitting there like she knows something? Get her out of here before she makes it worse." Angry murmurs rose around him. Dozens of eyes turned to Rachel, glares sharp, judgment heavy. But Rachel didn't move. Her jaw tightened, but her face stayed calm. Hands folded over her bag. Breath even. Then, the cockpit door swung open, and the co-pilot stepped out. He was tall, his buzz cut sharp, jaw locked so tight it looked ready to snap. His eyes swept the cabin, sharp, urgent, scanning faces. "We need anyone with navigation training," he called out, his tone low but carrying. "Military background, any level. Identify yourself now." The passengers went still. Only the engine's low drone and the muffled sobs of a child in the back filled the silence. Cindy hesitated, her hand trembling slightly before she pointed toward row 9. "She mentioned depressurization earlier," she whispered. She noticed it before anyone else. A woman with a sleek bob and diamond studs leaned forward, her voice cutting like glass. "You're trusting her? Look at her. She doesn't even look like she belongs on this flight." The laughter that followed was sharper now, colder. The cabin transformed into a courtroom with Rachel as the accused. Rachel rose, slipping her bag onto her shoulder. She walked toward the aisle without flinching, each step steady. The co-pilot's head dipped in acknowledgement, but the woman with the earrings wasn't finished. "This is reckless," she hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're gambling with all our lives on some nobody." Rachel's hand brushed the top of a seat, pausing only a heartbeat. Then she continued forward. Her steps didn't break, her shoulders didn't bend. The co-pilot moved closer, his boots thudding against the carpet, eyes never leaving her. "Ma'am?" he asked carefully. "Have you ever studied aviation?" Rachel tilted her chin, her gaze calm and unnervingly steady. "Altitude drifts off by 4 degrees, isn't it?" she said softly, her voice carrying in the hush. The co-pilot's jaw slackened, then tightened again. He gave a single grave nod, like he'd just seen a glimpse of something impossible. "Come with me." Rachel walked on, her sneakers making no sound against the carpet, the old bag brushing lightly against her hip. But before she could reach the cockpit, a man stepped out, blocking the aisle. He wore a suit too polished, hair slicked back, wrist heavy with a gold watch that screamed power. "Stop," he barked, his voice booming. "You can't be serious. You're letting her in there? Look at her, she doesn't even belong on this plane." The cabin rattled with turbulence, bins above rattling, but the man didn't budge. His glare burned into her. "This is life or death. We need a professional, not some girl in a hoodie." A few passengers nodded, their fear warping into judgment. Cindy stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. "Sir, she's been cleared. She's assisting with technical support." The man sneered, like the words had a foul taste. "Technical support? Her? You're joking." Rachel stopped, the rubber of her sneakers squeaking faintly. She turned her head just enough to meet his eyes. "You just cost us 2 minutes with your prejudice," she said evenly, her voice soft but ice cold. "That's long enough to lose a wing." The executive froze, mouth open but empty. Rachel brushed past, her bag skimming his arm, and kept walking. A teenage boy with dangling earbuds leaned out, snickering. "Yo, she's gonna crash us. Look at her, she's clueless." His friend chuckled, phone raised, recording her back as she moved forward. "Bet she's never even been on a plane before this one." Laughter spilled down the aisle, a cruel wave rolling after her. But Rachel didn't falter. Her fingers brushed a seat back as she passed, the only tether grounding her. The cockpit door loomed closer. Another violent shudder rocked the plane, throwing it hard to the left. Screams pierced the air. The co-pilot clutched the wall to steady himself. Rachel never broke stride. She stepped into the cockpit, the door closing firm behind her. Inside, the captain hunched over the controls, his face slick with sweat. He looked up sharply as Rachel entered, his eyes narrowing. Rachel didn't wait. "Viper 9 requesting co-navigation clearance," she said, barely louder than a whisper. The captain spun, his eyes widening like he'd seen a ghost. "My God, only one person ever used that call sign." His voice shook. His hand lifted, pointing to the co-pilot's seat. "Night Viper 9, we thought you vanished after Oregon." Rachel didn't answer. She slid into the chair with practiced ease, her movements smooth, no hesitation. "There's no time. Your pitch control system is lying to you." She leaned forward, her fingers brushing over the radar display. "Your actual altitude warning is off, 800 feet higher than the system shows." The captain's mouth worked, trying to argue, but no words came. At last, he nodded grimly. Rachel's hands moved fast, recalibrating with precision that clashed against her worn jeans and peeling sneakers. Then the radio crackled, a voice barking in authority. "No passengers are permitted at the controls. That is a direct order." The captain's hand hovered over the mic, torn. But before he could reply, another voice thundered over the cabin speakers, hard, unyielding, military. "I don't authorize anyone scrubbed from defense records to touch a single switch." Rachel froze mid-motion, her fingers still poised over the controls. Slowly, she turned her head, locking eyes with the captain. The silence between them was heavier than the storm outside. "Then start calling search and recovery," Rachel said evenly. "You'll need them for the bodies." The captain's skin drained of color, but the co-pilot stepped forward, his jaw set, his tone firm. "I'll authorize it. Let her take command." Rachel slid into the co-pilot's seat, pulling the headset on with a smooth familiarity that froze the captain mid-breath. She didn't smile, didn't posture, just moved with a precision that spoke of endless repetition. Her fingers adjusted switches as though the machine already knew her. Outside, storm clouds swirled, black and heavy, but Rachel's gaze never wavered from the panels. Her hand swept across the controls, confident and exact, as though she'd been born here in this chaos. The captain muttered under his breath, almost to himself. "She's flying like this is a combat zone." Rachel glanced at him for the briefest heartbeat before locking back onto the controls, her silence cutting deeper than any retort. Back in the cabin, tension grew like static. The executive slouched, in his seat, muttering to the man beside him, some hedge fund type in a glossy tie. "If this goes south, who takes the fall?" "Certainly not her." The hedge fund man nodded, his voice oozing disdain. "Exactly. Nobody knows who she is. For all we know, she's some disgraced hacker." A woman in a designer blazer, hair wound into a severe bun, leaned in from across the aisle. "I heard she was erased from defense records, probably court-martialed or worse." In the row ahead, a young mother cradled her toddler, eyes locked on the cockpit door. Fear flickered there, but also a fragile spark of belief. She whispered to the woman beside her, voice trembling. "What if she's the only one who can save us?" The older woman with a silk scarf scoffed. "Don't fool yourself, look at her. Just another passenger in thrift store clothes." The young mother's hope dimmed, but she still clutched her child tighter. The toddler wriggled, dropping a plastic toy plane that clattered onto the floor. Her gaze caught Rachel's bag left on the seat nearby. A patch, worn and faded, stitched with 2 small letters. NV. Then Rachel's voice filled the cabin through the intercom. Calm, clear, unshakable. "This is passenger 9A. Prepare for controlled descent. Everyone remain seated." The plane went silent. Dozens of heads turned upward. Even the security officer, his jaw set tight, finally sank back into his seat. Moments later, the co-pilot's voice came over, crisp and professional. "I confirm her authority. She is now at the controls." Gasps rippled through the rows, some angry, others stunned. "They're letting her fly?" whispered a woman in a pink cardigan, her eyes wide as she clutched her husband's arm. Inside the cockpit, Rachel's grip was steady. Her eyes shifted between the glowing monitors and the jagged shapes of the Kamchatka Mountains, flashing through the windows like teeth in the dark. She reached for a switch, fingers brushing the edge of an old navigation unit. Echo wave terrain guidance. Obsolete. Long abandoned. With one flick, the monitor hummed alive, sketching out the land below in ghostly lines. The captain's brows furrowed. "You're activating echo wave? Nobody uses that anymore." Rachel didn't look at him. "It's the only system giving us the truth right now." A shrill alarm beeped. Rachel leaned closer, twisting a dial with surgical precision. Her motions so practiced they looked choreographed. The captain flinched, ready to intervene, but froze as the altitude readings leveled out. His eyes widened, hands hovering uselessly over his own controls. Beyond the windshield, the storm split open just briefly, revealing a corridor of clear air, Rachel's mouth tightened into a line, eyes focused like she was seeing further than anyone else. The co-pilot leaned in, his voice low, almost reverent. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Rachel's hands paused only for a second, then moved again, guiding the aircraft into a smooth, deliberate dip. The violent shuddering eased. Cabin pressure climbed back toward normal. One by one, red warning lights blinked away into silence. The jet threaded a narrow path between the storm cells, the mountains falling away beneath them like shadowed giants. The co-pilot whispered again, astonished. "How did you know?" Rachel said nothing, her silence heavier than words. A thin scar, just visible, traced her wrist before vanishing beneath her sleeve. The cockpit door cracked open. A young flight attendant stepped in, pale and shaky, clutching a clipboard. "Ma'am, the passengers want to know who you are. They're terrified." Rachel didn't glance up. Her eyes locked on the horizon, her voice level, almost casual. "Tell them to buckle up and breathe." The attendant hesitated, then retreated, shutting the door. The captain whispered under his breath, awe creeping in. "She just executed a maneuver that only appears in classified war zone training manuals." Rachel's fingers didn't falter, but her shoulders tensed just slightly, as though the memory of something buried pressed too close. In the cabin, a little girl with messy pigtails clutched a teddy bear. She tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Is she a superhero?" the child asked, her voice small, pure. Her mother, worn and tired in a denim jacket, hesitated, then smiled softly. "Maybe, sweetheart. She might be." Nearby, a man in a tracksuit snorted, his laugh weak and uncertain now. His certainty had been stripped away, replaced by something else. The executive sat stiff, arms folded, his eyes locked on the floor. The woman in the blazer kept glancing at her phone, waiting for some unseen direction. Then an older man with worn hands and a jacket patched at the elbows slowly rose, ignoring the annoyed looks around him. He shuffled to Rachel's vacant seat where her bag remained, and carefully lifted a small notebook she had left behind. Opening it, his eyes moved across the pages. Then he shut it softly as though it carried weight. "This isn't just anyone," he rasped, voice firm now. Holding up the notebook, he added, "These are flight records, military." The entire cabin froze. Silence pressed in as everyone stared at the battered book. Just then the plane steadied, the engine's hum smoothing into comfort. Rachel's calm voice flowed from the intercom. "We are stable. Landing in 20 minutes. Relief broke like a wave, cheers, claps, tears, embraces. A moment later, the captain's voice followed, quieter, full of awe. "This is your captain. We owe everything to the passenger in row 9. A little girl hugged her stuffed bear tighter, clapping with joy. The security officer averted his eyes, jaw tight. The executive stayed motionless, staring blankly out the window. As the aircraft descended, a young man in a hoodie tapped furiously at his laptop. He leaned to a student beside him, eyes blazing. "I found something. Night Viper 9, there's an old Air Force post. A pilot who saved a mission in Oregon. It's her." The student's breath caught, her voice barely a whisper. "She's real." When the wheels touched down in Tokyo, the landing was smooth, almost unreal. Passengers spilled out, some trembling, some laughing in disbelief. Rachel exited last, bag slung over her shoulder, sneakers silent against the tarmac. She didn't pause, didn't seek thanks, only walked toward the terminal, her hair catching in the airport lights. From the crowd, the man in the tracksuit muttered, his smugness gone. "Who was she?" His friend only shook his head. Later that day, cameras flashed at a press conference. The airline spokesperson stood polished and smiling. "We are thankful for the safe landing. Our crew responded with professionalism." A reporter cut in sharply. "Passengers say a woman from row 9 saved the plane." "Who was she?" The spokesman hesitated, then forced a smile. "Just a fortunate passenger who stepped in. We don't have her name." The room buzzed with doubt, but Rachel was already far across the airport, her bag bouncing against her hip. A young student hurried after her, phone in hand. "Wait, just for a moment, people need to see your face." Rachel stopped, turned slowly. Her gaze was calm, yet carried weight. "They don't need my face," she said softly. "They're alive." "That's enough." She turned back and disappeared into the crowd. The girl stood frozen, phone raised, unsure what she had just witnessed. Meanwhile, in the airport lounge, some passengers argued in low tones. The woman with diamond earrings scoffed, her arms crossed tight. She just got lucky. That doesn't make her a hero. The old man with the patched jacket set Rachel's notebook on the table. This isn't luck, he said steadily. These are coordinates. Flight paths. She's flown through hell before. The group fell quiet. The woman looked away, her confidence cracking. A week later, Rachel's story had spread everywhere. Blurry clips of her in the cockpit flooded the internet. Her steady hands on the controls, her calm face as the plane leveled. Comments swarmed. Who is she? Why is she hiding? She must be a legend. The airline held firm to their story, just a lucky passenger. The executive from the flight, cornered by reporters, flushed red, muttering the same excuse. I didn't know. Then came the medal ceremony. A small gathering, honoring civilians who had done the extraordinary. The U.S. president stepped up, voice solemn but warm. We honor those who act when no one else will, he said. Then he paused, looking straight into the cameras. Night Viper 9, if you're watching, this nation still owes you its gratitude. The hall went silent. Heads turned toward the doors, expecting her to appear. She never did. For days, news outlets replayed the shaky clip. Anchors dissecting every frame. They dug into Air Force archives, finding nothing. Only scattered rumors of a pilot who vanished after a classified mission. One quiet passenger from that flight uploaded his own video. Filmed from his seat. It showed Rachel's silhouette walking toward the cockpit, her bag slung across her shoulder. His voice cracked as he narrated, this was her. She didn't care what anyone thought. She just saved us. The video exploded online, millions of views flooding in. Comments poured beneath it. People sharing their own stories of being underestimated, ignored, dismissed. Rachel's face was never clear, but her presence lingered, like a shadow the world couldn't shake. Back in Oregon, Rachel worked in a small garage, her hands covered in grease as she rebuilt an engine. The radio tuned to a classic rock station cut to breaking news. The president's voice filled the air. She didn't look up, just tightened a bolt with steady, practiced precision. On her wrist, half hidden under oil, a small tattoo glinted briefly. NV9. Then it disappeared beneath a rag. The garage owner, an older man with a limp and a graying beard, poked his head in. You hear that, Rachel? They're talking about some hero pilot again. She gave the faintest nod, her expression unreadable. Yeah, she murmured, reaching for a wrench. Sounds like quite a story. He chuckled and left, leaving her to the hum of the radio. The world moved on outside. Rachel just kept working. The passengers from that flight, though, they never forgot. The little girl with the stuffed bear drew a picture of a woman flying a plane, crayon wings spread wide. Her mother framed it on their wall. The executive, quietly fired, his arrogance captured and viral. Clips that ruined his career. The woman in the pink. Cardigan abandoned her online boasting after her last post was buried in angry comments. The security officer found himself reassigned to a desk, his name forever tied to his failure that day. None of them ever learned Rachel's name, yet they felt her presence every time they boarded a plane, every time they looked at the sky. In a diner near the airport, a week later, the young mother from the flight sat with her toddler, his toy plane still clutched tight. At the next table, a group of pilots whispered about the mysterious woman from Flight 472. Nobody flies like that without serious training, one said, his tone heavy with respect. The mother smiled, her eyes misting as she leaned close to her son. That's her, baby. That's the lady who brought us home. The toddler laughed, waving his little toy plane, unaware of the truth resting in his mother's voice. Rachel didn't need their thanks. She didn't need apologies. She just kept moving forward, her sneakers quiet on the pavement, her bag slung across her shoulder. She did what had to be done, like always. And somewhere in the back of her mind was the steady rhythm of a plane's engine, carrying 216 souls safely home. That was enough. It had to be. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and follow for more journeys through heartbreak, betrayal, and the strength to rise again.